Well, here we are in the middle of the cruise in Portugal, and it looks like we may not be able to go any further. So how did we get into this fix? Heavy weather in the Bay of Biscay caused considerable damage, of which the major was that the bowsprit began to fall off the boat, and that would have brought the mast down with it, and that would have been the end of that. We also had other minor damage, such as the engine wouldn't start, a hatch got displaced, and one of the crew was quite badly hurt when a flying rope hit him in the mouth and knocked out a tooth. Fortunately, there are talented people all over the world, and a great gang at Nazaré, Portugal, under the leadership of Alec, a welder and mechanic, took the bowsprit off the boat, transported it to a shop, and completely rebuilt it with stronger metal and a different design for the attachment points. We got the engine going, and the cruise was able to continue. So let's go back to the beginning and see what happened in the tranquil canals before we got to the heavy weather offshore. We left Long Island in July of 2015 and sailed via our first canal, the Cape Cod, to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. We then did a 16-day ocean passage with only one major gale to Oban, Scotland. From Oban we cruised the Western Isles for 2 weeks, then made our second passage through the Caledonian Canal to the North Sea, crossed over to Denmark and went through our third canal, the Aalborg. We cruised in the Baltic for a week or two, cruised the German coast, exited via the Kiel Canal into the English Channel, and from Falmouth we crossed the Bay of Biscay and received, unfortunately, some rather heavy damage, which was repaired in Portugal. This enabled us to push on double-handed to the Canary Islands, and from there we had a very calm passage, 27 days, across to St. Martin in the Caribbean. Friends and relatives came down to St. Martin and we cruised up to Puerto Rico, and then from there we sailed to Bermuda and home. A 14,000 mile cruise which ended in May 2016. Our first canal, the Cape Cod, was relatively short. It goes from Buzzards Bay to Cape Cod Bay. From there, we sailed across the Gulf of Maine to Lunenburg, an old fishing port I've been to many times and usually rather foggy. The crew for the leg to Newfoundland was Misha, seen here at the wheel as we approach the Narrows and the entrance to St. John's Harbour, Newfoundland, in somewhat grungy weather. Signal Hill is where Marconi made his first transatlantic radio message.
There's Captain Forsyth and our new crew member Tom folding the mainsail. We had some inclement weather coming into St. John's, and Captain Forsyth has decided that we're going to put on the storm main for the rest of the journey, just in case we run into any foul weather. And here we are again in beautiful St. John's. You can see the entrance to the bay here. This is our new crew member, Tom Lohr. He's currently lowering down Captain Forsyth, who he's done many times before, gone to the top of the mast to repair some damage from the weather that we sailed through as we were coming into St. John's.
This is a demonstration of the rare art of sculling.
Time you leaving?
Around
Around noon.
Around what?
noon.
Oh, you're leaving soon?
No, boy, I'm staying home.
Have a good trip.
Thank you.
And just wave over, wave.
There you go.
Well, we're saying goodbye to St John's, Newfoundland. Lovely place. Time to go, though. Tom, who's good with needle and thread, made himself a little tent for the notorious leaker, the port bunk. And it's completely watertight now. Whatever splashes down from up there doesn't get to hit, it runs around that and underneath the mattress. When we left Newfoundland, we faced a 2,000-mile leg to Scotland. We had one gale, and here it is. This is Oban on the day we arrived. And we are examining the scars of battle here. Do you want to demonstrate what happened to our staysail?
The line that holds the sail to the end of the boom,
The outhaul.
The outhaul broke, and the block then beat itself against the sail and made those little marks and ripped the liner.
It's not too bad. Well, we finally left Oban, and after a nice morning sail, we're heading into Tobermory, which is right there. We'll get around this little point here, and the bay will open up. And on board we have our new crew member, Josh. He's been steering for a while.
Oh, wow.
And of course, Misha's still on board. And this is Mull Sound. This is an anchorage called Loch Scavig. And it's supposed to be one of the most beautiful in the British Isles. These are the Coolin Mountains here. Well, they're technically hills. And people come from nearby in launches because you can only get here by boat. And just beyond that German yacht there's a launch there. People walk up to the lake above this outcropping there, just near that mountaineer's hut. We finally made it ashore at Loch Scavig. All kinds of problems, the usual ones with the outboard of course, which never seems to work. And there's Fiona. There were some launches for nearby tourist traps there. In this solemn service we're condemning the body of our vice-grips to the sea. The vice-grips sacrificed an eternal spring to bring Victor the Vane back to life. And so, as it was bought in Canada, we're putting the Canadian flag on many, many years ago. And we say goodbye to a faithful shipmate. And we walk back here to Dunvegan Castle, which goes back to the 1200s, actually the oldest part. That there called the Fairy Tower, and it's 1500. There's Dunvegan Castle that we went to yesterday. We're rounding the north end of Skye. On the west side of the island the weather was pretty grungy, but as we got more to the east it moderated somewhat. Portree Harbour on a somewhat overcast Monday morning. This is the town itself, Nice little place. The tide is ebbing, as you can see from those moorings there, which is what we want. This is Plockton, with the ritual traditional Highland castle there called Duncraig. There's Fiona on a mooring. Our dinghy's up there. And this is supposed to be a very beautiful spot. This is Plockton again. And somebody's parked an E-type jag. A coupe.
From Edinburgh.
From Edinburgh, oh yeah. Very low today, it's a spring tide. So the tide has gone way, way out. People are walking out to this small island at low water here. This is the guard dog at the gatehouse for Duncairn Castle. And over the door, over the gate, are words to live by. We're now approaching the new bridge that connects the mainland to Skye at Kyle of Lacalche. Well, here we are at the entrance to the Caledonian Canal. This is our second canal of the cruise. We are waiting for the lock gates to open. There they are. And once they're open, we check into the Caledonian Canal for the next 2 days. Well, that's goodbye to the Scottish Islands. When we finish with this canal, we'll be in the North Sea. This is an old-fashioned puffer, a steam-operated freighter, of which really throughout most of the 20th century until after the war, hundreds of them freighted between the islands. But now they're just a hobby for somebody. Here comes the daily steam train from Mallaig to Glasgow. Well, they got 4 yachts into the first lock that we're now doing of the Caledonian Canal. 3 sailboats and a powerboat. This is rather dramatic, water pouring over the lock gates, and we're going to go through about 8 locks now close together, called Neptune's Staircase.
Here we are at the top of Neptune's Staircase. That's 8 locks. There's Fiona with Captain Forsyth, complemented by 2 other sailboats, 1 motorboat. That's the Maisie with Richard and his wife Fiona. And here's a shot down the locks. And that's 8 locks. That took us about an hour or so. Here's some video of beautiful Scottish canal. Fiona is on her way from Corpac to Loch Lochy. It's Captain Forsyth at the helm. We're under power, making about 6 knots. This is the canal between Loch Lochy and Loch Ness. It's very beautiful, picturesque. We just went through Loch Lagan, and we have 2 more lochs to go before we hit Loch Ness. There's the skipper at the helm as always, having a bit of tea.
Loch Ness. And there's Urquhart Castle. This is Drumnad Rocket. We just went to the Loch Ness exhibition, and now we're walking into the village for a cup of coffee, which is right there. I'm going to have a look round this old puffer, which is open to the public today. This is the view from the wheelhouse. And here's the wheel. This is the engine. It's a double expansion, and I'm told by the experts up on the wheelhouse that it's not a proper puffer because the low pressure steam is condensed and used again, whereas on the real puffers it puffs into the air, puff, 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 and that's why they're called puffers. Just a general view of the engine room. And there's the cylinders, low pressure and high pressure, and the boiler here, and the stack funnel. Here's a view looking across the cabin, which is where the old goods hatch was.
Right. Oh, I put it in the hand.
The winch for the anchor, windlass actually. Say that again.
Yes,
Would you like the book? Would you like the DVD? Or would you like both?
I'll take both.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's $15.50.
Andy's at the wheel, our new crew, and there's Alan, the other new crew there on lookout. And we're leaving the Caledonian Canal, which is back there. After a 2-day crossing of the North Sea, we encountered very heavy weather as we approached Tiburon on the Danish coast. Here is our new crew member, Alan, from South Africa. Leaving Tiburon, which is the proper way to pronounce Tiburon, we passed a giant wind farm here, and we're heading for the Aalborg Canal. There's a close-up of a wind turbine. They're huge. Scenes on the Aalborg Canal. Here's a house built of Lego, I think. And then panning round, there's a small village, very much in the Danish style, with windmills everywhere nowadays. The Aalborg is our 3rd canal. It's about 60 miles long. Now, this really is wind power. Windmills, wind generators as far as the eye can see. Here comes a tall ship heading the other way. This is in the Aalborg Canal. Looks like a school ship. Lots of kids there up on the bow. This is navigating the Aalborg Canal in fog. The fog has varied a bit, but it has mostly been dense. Here are some wind generators, completely still of course, looming out of the murk. This is a 19th century Danish frigate called the Jelland. It was powered by both sail and steam. On the gun decks is Jelland. On one of the gun decks, showing the sailors sleeping in their hammocks. And we've even got sound effects. And here they are, eating a meal. This is down at the lowest level, below the waterline. And you can see the bilge here, and the keelson. This is interesting. The rudder, propeller. And it looks like the propeller could be lifted out. You look up there, there's a chute. And here's the stern of the Jelland. And this is a view of the rudder and propeller from above. A shot of the main street of the quaint little village of Evelstoff. Very picturesque countryside here. Nice big house up there. And down on the waterfront, rather picturesque thatched cottage. This is what the Baltic looks like, with no wind and a pressure of over 10-50 millibars. It's been like this now for 3 days. We're now crossing the Store Belt, a major waterway into the Baltic, and this ship cut it very fine. If we'd not changed course, he would have hit us actually. This is a village called Simrishamn, full of some medieval type houses in the centre. I'll take a few more pictures in a minute, but here's something you don't see every day. A tree that's eating a house. And the house is being consumed bit by bit. This is the old church at Simrishamn. Here's a quiet little square in Simrishamn with a pump there. Peter is going to tell us about his boat here, a fishing boat.
This is a cruiser built in 1916 on Bornholm. It's built as a fishing boat. So, and I just restored it.
He restored it. He has a boat works here where he restores wooden boats.
So,
looks lovely.
Thanks.
The main square of Stralsund, formerly in East Germany. Here's a very impressive town hall, known in German as the Rathaus. It's actually a rather odd building. It's got a huge facade, and then behind it there's a much smaller building. This is a polyphonium in the Cultural and Historical Museum of Stralsund. 20 cents gives you a tune. Street scene in Stralsund with 3 Russian musicians. As we sail down the coast of Germany towards Warnemünde. We've just passed that cape over there. See that, 7.2, 46 feet of water, which is pretty deep for this part of the world actually. This is Warnemünde, which is the sea entrance for Rostock. This is called the Alterstrom, which I think is the original waterfront. And it's quite a nice holiday resort. There are hotels along the shore there, along the bank. And the yacht club is over there. And it's another perfect day. These small boats here take people around the harbour. Hafenrundfahrt. There, that means harbour tour. And you can see people drinking coffee at the shoreside restaurants and things. This is town square in Rostock. Still part of the Hanseatic League. There goes the streetcar. Very nice building there. A square in Rostock. Nice fountain in the middle. With some rather odd sculptures. This is one of the original city gates of Rostock, and apparently the best preserved. This is the original city wall with the typical Rostock lady there. Goes all the way around to the watchtower that I photographed a couple of minutes ago, the gate. We're going to take the S-Bahn from Rostock to Warnemünde, and I'll take a shot inside so you see how smooth it is. Try and take a shot of the train accelerating. It really moves. Or accelerates is a better word when it starts off.
Nice autumn colours on the trees.
All those series wound motors just grinding away. And you can see that autumn has started here, seen through the windows. There we go, it's off. Very quiet, there's no bangity bang bang of buffers hitting each other. It just accelerates very smoothly and cleanly, no noise. Does not remind me of the Long Island Railroad. This is in the Machine Museum in Kiel. Really interesting place. This is a steam engine, which, believe it or not, despite its massive size, produces something like 55 kilowatts. There's the generator. Here's a lovely model of a diesel engine built in 1837. This is Christina demonstrating a gnome rotary engine. There. Very popular on fighters in the Daimler-Benz motor from 1929. We used to drive this car here that you can see in the picture. Here before a class of students, the demonstrator is showing an old-fashioned naphtha engine. Those and steam engines ran factories and workshops for years using belting like this, generally leather that ran up to pulleys carried by overhead shafting. This is the Kiel Canal, our fourth canal and last one. It's about 60 miles long. We're a few miles after leaving the lock at the start of the Kiel Canal. And quite a lot of commercial traffic catching up with us. This is something that's pretty unique here. It's a transporter. It's been carried across the canal. Pretty amazing. Huh? Also, we've picked up a tow. This little boat here has lost its little outboard engine. So we've been the Good Samaritans and towing them to Bronzebottle, which is about 60 kilometres, I'll say 40 miles. So we're stuck with them all day. Big ships and small go through the Kiel Canal. Here's a big one. This is a shot of a cruise ship coming through the canal here. Marco Polo. There's Fiona, looking pretty beaten up. And look at all the passengers up there, waving to us. Here come the crows. This is like a shot from the birds. This is a very tranquil river north of Bronzebottle called the Brack River, which I believe in German means what did it say it meant in German? Brack. It was somewhat salty. Some kids are fishing, and here are my new crew, Sander and Peter, who just arrived.
Hi.
This is suburban Bronzebottle. Down there's a very pleasant water tower. Here's another nice suburban street, particularly pleasant house. I think it's a duplex. Very nice though. There's an old church back there. You can see it's got all kinds of goodies. And I've eaten here every day. This is a night scene from the 2-day trip from the Elbe River in Germany to Ramsgate in England. It's in the North Sea and the crew were not very impressed, but I had a lovely sail. This is the next day in the North Sea. Nice beam wind and we're about 40 or 50 miles from Ramsgate. This is Ramsgate Harbour. And somewhere in that mess over there is Fiona. This is actually the inner harbour that's locked in. We're in an outer harbour that's not locked, so it goes up and down with the tide. And it's an old port here. And there's some rather interesting, I imagine this look like Victorian arches, which have now been converted to a large number of small businesses. This is an original Thames barge. Here's a Thames barge. There's the foredeck of the Thames barge. And there's another. People used to live on these in the Thames, but I don't think we do anymore. Very substantial harbour. Huge jetties. We're now about 2 miles north of Dover in the English Channel, and here you can see the famous cliffs, the White Cliffs. The wind has died on us, it was quite brisk earlier on, and we're bucking currents of about 3.5 knots at the moment, the idea being to get a favourable current later on in the afternoon. Another shot of Dover here. That's a ferry going into it. There's the Dover dock, harbour. And then if we pan round, we've got the White Cliffs again. This is Sovereign Harbour, Eastbourne. It's a very upmarket marina. 22 years old, I'm told. It's pretty jazzy. There's Fiona. Well, this is one for the books. I just tied up the boat in this lock, ready to leave Southern Harbour, and found a note from Sander and Peter that they're going, and in fact they've gone somewhere. So I just moved the boat over myself, and now I'm looking at a single-handed trip, probably to Falmouth. This is Eastbourne from the sea on a nice calm Sunday morning. Slightly misty this Sunday morning, but if you can see it, there's Beachy Head. We'll give it a couple of miles clearance. This is Beachy Head, the lone fisherman there. And this is probably the last land I'll see for a day or two. Dolphins greeted the boat as I arrived off Falmouth. It had been a 2-day single-handed trip from Eastbourne after my crew unexpectedly disappeared. This is approaching Falmouth Harbour. On our port side is Pendennis Castle. The area was famous for the Arthurian legends many years ago. Here's a quick shot of Falmouth as we approach. Hopefully I can find a slip in there somewhere. This is near the centre of Falmouth. Very nice town. With lots of nice shops. This is a rather historic spot. On these steps we tied up the dinghy when we anchored Arvincourt out there. Arvincourt 2 was anchored there. We came over with the dinghy in 1964 when we crossed the Atlantic on John Knight's boat. We tied up here and went to a fish and chip shop. And when we came back, the dinghy was hanging by its bowline because the tide had gone out. But it's probably, at Springs, there's probably 10 to 12 feet of tide here. So this is, as I say, quite a nostalgic spot. Edith and I took the train to London the next day, where now Fiona's tied up over there, where you can see all the masts. This is inside the Falmouth Maritime Museum. Kids are learning to sail by operating radio-controlled yachts. This is the entrance to Henry VIII's fort, Fort Callisto. This, in combination with the fort on the other side of this channel here, St Mawes it's called, defended the entrance to Falmouth, which is down there. This is the round tower of Henry VIII's fort. Cannons were positioned at these little windows here and could direct fire in combination with the one across the channel. This is on the top part of the tower. This is Truro. There's Steve, who just joined the boat. There's Gus at the wheel. New crew just signed on today. He's having a very rough ride for his first day. We're just a beam of Land's End in somewhat stormy conditions. Wind's been up to gale force. Now it's 30 knots. Land's End. I hope you can see it. As I mentioned at the start of the video, we had severe problems in the Bay of Biscay caused by heavy weather. The starter motor got broken, the hatch lost its blue sight, and poor Steve got a tooth knocked out. Also, of course, the bowsprit came loose and nearly fell off, which we'll show later. We were heartily glad to sail inside the massive jetty of Viana do Castelo in northern Portugal. We headed up the river to the marina at Viana. We could at least get some preliminary things fixed before we try find the heavy lifting that we need to fix the bowsprit. The pounding we took in the Bay of Biscay caused some damage at the bow.
Yes,
First was to go was this hatch, which we're going to replace the lucite cover, and more spectacularly, the bracket broke and disappeared on the bow platform here. You can see down there, it's just hanging in space there. And this is the funicular. It's counterbalanced, this car, by another one coming down. So in the middle they have to do something. Really savvy engineering. Now we're at the top. There's a cathedral. According to the local myth, it was put in this very spot because this was as far south as the plague penetrated in the 13th century. And so they celebrated that by building a cathedral on the demarcation line. You can see the harbour we came in through here, jetties. There's a boatyard right inside that main jetty. And then down there by the white building is the marina where Fiona is. After a few days, we sailed the boat very carefully in calm seas about 100 miles down the coast to the port of Nazare, where I knew there were heavy engineering facilities that could repair the bow platform. So, the bowsprit is off the boat. While Alec rebuilt the bowsprit in his workshop, we took the chance to do a little sightseeing, and here's a view of Nazare from the head of the peninsula. To weld bits and pieces.
It's an ongoing project, it's a documentary.
With the bowsprit repaired and reinstalled on the boat, we had a barbecue for the marina and then headed south to Lisbon. This is the Cascais Marina. We arrived last night and got a beautiful day for our pains. And here is Fiona. We indulged in a little sightseeing before we all went home for Christmas. Here's the Ferris wheel at Cascais, and there's a shot of the palace at Sintra from the Moorish castle. This is the main square in Lisbon. Here's a shot of Lisbon from the castle overlooking the city and the River Tagus, and I'm in the battlements of the castle. This is the run from Cascais, Portugal to La Gomorra. You can see we're running about wind about 15 to 20, modest seas, Victor steering the boat, and who should have come back for another trip but Tom, who made the trip across the Atlantic in August, and we're heading for Scotland. This is San Sebastian, La Gomorra, the marina here, and a giant rainbow has appeared. And here you see the rather imposing cliffs that dominate the marina. Well, unfortunately the turnbuckle on the bobsprit has broken, and we've brought the boat into wind. Alright, well, we've got the chain on board. Tom is getting the broken end of the turnbuckle off it. Fiona sailing nicely, the wind of 10 to 15 knots varying a bit from the east. And we're about 5 days out of Canals. Still got just under 2,000 miles to go. It's about 70 degrees there. You can see it on the thermometer. And Tom is enjoying the balmy weather while he does a bit of maintenance, lubrication, while Victor steers the boat there. This is a typical happy hour scene. We've got a lot of videos that Tom brought, and we're playing one during happy hour. This is actually best in show. A nice day in the North Atlantic, and we have a typical maintenance problem. Chafe in Victor's lines. Just demonstrate the chafing, will you, there? Just,
oh, here
there it is.
Right here, it's chafing against the
it's rubbing against the edge of the blocks. So.
It should be right through here.
Yeah.
Now it's chafing up to here. She tried to take me up there for a ride. Many a ballroom I met in.
Tom asked me, what do the old sailors do when there's no wind? Look, see, we're getting nowhere. And I said, well, they stuck a knife in the mast. So I said, I can do that. I said, it's an aluminum mast. He said, no problem. So he's going to do it.
All right, here it goes.
And there it is. Let me get the zoom looking here. Yep. And the wind should pipe up right away. The bane of ocean sailors. No wind. The sail slatted about like this. Yeah, that's what happens. No speed on the log. And not enough fuel to go anywhere. It's fairly calm this morning, but that doesn't stop Tom from refining his celestial navigation skills. He's going to see if the GPS is as accurate as it claims. Tom's going to plot his site that he just took.
Yeah, just stay right there. I'll get it in a second. I'm going to finish the video.
This is about as calm as it ever gets in the middle of the ocean. Sea is like an oily pond. The only wind comes from the boat slowly rolling, blowing the sail from side to side. We're about 340 miles from St. Martin. It looks like it's going to take us another month to get there. The trouble is, tomorrow we will run out of beer. A very sad day coming up. But in the meanwhile, the ocean looks extraordinarily calm. This is the famous Serafina's in Marigot, St. Martin, and inside I should be able to find Brenda and Laura. Actually, I can see Brenda disappearing to the ladies' room. And here's Brenda.
Hi, Dad.
And there's Serafina's. So we're now going to go to Philipsburg. Philipsburg, which is absolutely mad, is full of tourists off those ships there, which are huge. And the girls decided that if they don't drink early, they can't drink all day. So here they are. And they tried to get a guava berry, which is the invention of this island, and they've run out, right? The ladies are all going shopping mad here.
What size is mint? This is a good one.
This is in a butterfly farm in St. Martin.
Okay, yeah. You want to go on the tour?
Butterflies all over the place. Hard to...
That one is going to make this soon too. You see, that's the chrysalis. Now, here we have...
Okay, there are the happy tourists. Brenda and Laura flew home. The boat was joined by my son Colin and friend Lewis, and they will crew as far as Puerto Rico. And this is the beachfront at Philipsburg. We're approaching Round Rock, which is the passage into the Virgin Islands. And here's the redoubtable crew. Colin, my son, Lewis, from Florida. This is the anchorage at Anegada. The usual fleet that we get nowadays of charter boats there. And I was trying to anchor way upwind of them. This is where we are now. We have a bird on the foredeck, in fact on the pulpit there. It's been there all night. This is Colin smoking his Cuban cigar. What do you want to say, Cole?
Spanish.
Life is good.
In Spanish.
La vida es buena.
Yeah, sí.
Here's Sandy Key at the east end of Yacht Van Dyke. Great Harbour, BVI, Yacht Van Dyke. And the famous Fox's Bar. And here it is. Actually, a little rain shower started. Lewis, there you go. We are visiting El Yunque again. Here's Colin and Lewis in the walkway that goes through the upper canopy. El Coco Falls. This is Colin marching through the jungle path to La Mina Falls. La Mina Falls in the El Yunque National Forest. We're about 75 miles north of Puerto Rico. The day has dawned very hot, very calm, as you can see. There's Julie. And Neil is polishing the rods that hold up the awning, which haven't been used in years. There it is. This is entering the cut in Bermuda after a 10-day trip from Puerto Rico, one of my slowest, very tedious trip with lots of headwinds. And there's the cut there. There's Fort Gates. There's the old ship that has been slowly rotting away ever since I've been coming to Bermuda. This is the old customs house that's been in use for many, many years. I think when I first came it was over the post office, but that was 50 years ago. The pink and blue Bermuda bus. Julie and Neil never been to Bermuda before, so Julie and I had lunch at the Princess, which is as upmarket as you can get. There's Bernie Oatley waiting for the famous pink and blue bus. There was a seagull engine exhibit. I still have a seagull on the boat, and they're very fond of them here in Bermuda, and they have a race around the island every year with seagull engines, which I remember seeing once. Yes. Yeah, this one here, I think he told me, this one is the oldest seagull that they got. It was first made in the 30s. The seagull running in the background. Neil and Julie found a friendly bar at the White Horse Tavern in St George's. Here's a nice shot of Tobacco Bay, St George's, on a lovely morning. No wind. Hope it's a bit different tomorrow because that's when we're leaving. But as it turned out, the winds were fairly light to start with. But as we approached Five Island Inlet, perhaps 100 miles away, some heavy weather kicked in, which you can see here. Meanwhile, we're steaming along, pretty much on course, at 7 knots. Alright, the sun is setting, and we're 5 days out of Bermuda, and here's a sight that we're really glad to see. The Robert Moses Bridge. We came through the inlet about 20 minutes ago, and it looks like the current is fairly neutral here. Not much current. Okay, the trip is over. I have had time to reflect on it. And what are my impressions? What am I left with? I greatly enjoyed the longer canals. They're much fun to meet the people that live along the canal as you stop for the night. And I think the Caledonian is my favourite. I enjoyed the Danish coast. It's extremely pleasant. The Danes are boating mad. The marinas are set up to be very efficient for visiting yachts. You simply pay for the services you want with a card. I enjoyed the Machinery Museum in Kiel, introduced to me by Christina, a friend of mine who's a professor in Germany. I think that on the downside, I'm sorry that I exposed two great guys, Steve and Gus, to the bad weather in the Bay of Biscay. I don't think they fully appreciated, because of their inexperience, just how dangerous that situation was. We could have lost the mast, and that would have been pretty disastrous in those sea conditions. On the other hand, the mechanics and the welder Alec at Nazaré in Portugal were extremely efficient in fixing the boat up, designing new brackets, welding them, and doing the whole thing in 4 days. Very creditable. I was sorry that I lost 3 of my crew as they quietly debunked during the night. I think that's to some extent my fault. I perhaps should have paid more attention to what concerned them. But one of them was very seasick, and it's difficult to get over that. So I am left with the impression that it was a fairly good trip, and that it's not a bad way to spend nearly a year.